When I was a young guy, I was taught by my father to work hard and be successful, and that worked really well for me. We grew the farming business, everything was going sweet. Had a lot of ups and downs, things happened, but we managed to stagger through those. The business was constantly expanding, and then when I got to age 44 in about 1996, we got a drought that didn't stop. It just went on and on and on, and I'd been trained by my family, who'd been there for a long time at that top stage, to manage drought. But after about 3 years where the reward for my effort was nil, my mind broke. Interesting thing, I didn't know that had happened. I'd been a senior community leader, I'd been involved in everything, the board of trustees of the local school, I was chairman of that. I was a lion, I was in all sorts of things. And my world fell to bits. I resigned from everything, isolated myself, went home, drank heavily. Never started before 5 o'clock, but it was always 5 o'clock somewhere, so I could start when I wanted to. And hid from everybody. My wife used to lie on my behalf. People would ring and say, "Can I speak to Doug?" And she'd say, "He's not here." We didn't talk about mental health in New Zealand in those days, and so she was isolated, I was isolated, and things got really grim. First reason that I've come to Scotland is I wanted to spread the word it's okay to say you're not okay. And so if you can get some sort of person who's achieved quite highly in Scotland, that has maybe had a brush with mental health trouble, to come out and they need to be able to be sure that that person's got through that process and understanding how to manage their top paddock, as I call it. That's a huge help to bringing particularly men, to give them permission to express their frailty or their problem. I talk to a lot of psychologists, and when they talk to me, they say, when I've got somebody prepared to come and sit on my couch, we're halfway to wellness. So what actually happened in New Zealand is that John Kerwin, the All Black, came out and admitted that he'd had trouble. That was huge for New Zealand. And then a bit later, people like me have stood up, and what that does is it gives people permission to seek help. And if you don't give that, of course, it can just spiral on to being of grievous consequence. So giving people permission is a great place to start, but that comes with another major problem. Lots of people start seeking help, and so then you're liable to get inundation on existing services, and that's a problem. But in New Zealand, we've decided that we have to push on with this. The only way you can solve mental health problems long term is to build the capability of people to manage their own minds, so that a person like me now understands when my mind is not well, and I know how to address it to get it right before it goes from being slightly unwell to sick. And these skills are not that hard, but in a society in denial, they will never ever change. So my aspirations as a person is to be back off the cliff, working with people, building the skills in well people, so that they can understand what it's like to be feeling wrong and understand how to deal with that. But in the meantime, in New Zealand, and I'm sure it will be very similar here, you will face an increased onslaught of people. Just on my tour, I've realised that there are a lot of people have come and spoken to me because they have permission to speak to me. They know that I won't be tough on them or judgmental, that have expressed their absolute relief that they finally feel they can say, "So I'm not okay." Before I left New Zealand, I'd never been here. People said to me, "You'll love Scotland, Doug, because the people are like us and the countryside is extremely beautiful." And I'm a person who loves those two things. Since I've been here, I realised that the people are more like us than I cared to imagine. And the feeling that I'm getting as I'm going around is the reaction to my process is almost identical to what happened in New Zealand. So I think in terms of permission, we're maybe a year or two ahead of where you are here. And we have a mental health inquiry in New Zealand now, which will become a public document shortly. And there'll be some really good process coming out of that inquiry. So, yeah, there's a lot of knowledge in New Zealand now, and it's growing, and we're getting more people engaged. And when I first started talking about this, you get hardly anyone there. And today, when I go around New Zealand, I can get 300 or 400 people in every town I go to. So, the New Zealand people are incredibly focused on trying to grow their mental capacity. And to be quite honest, I think in New Zealand at the moment, and I'm sure it's also true here, it's probably one of the greatest triggers for economic success, environmental success, and social success. They're all linked together. And improving the capability of even well people to lift to a higher standard, to understand how to manage their minds under pressure, to build their resilience, is one of the great triggers that we can switch into and do.